Your story changed because guess what? You called the Mama Renee. And when you called the Mama Renee, you gonna tell Renee, oh, he fell at the gas station and bumped his head. How he fell at the gas station and bumped his head when you claimed to put him out of the car. Okay, now the story changed again. This on Sunday morning, Renee drive up to Gainesville. The Davis family don't even know my nephew in the hospital. I gotta call it like it is.
For 5 days, she said nothing publicly. While his family flooded social media demanding answers, silence. While hundreds gathered, grieving, questioning, silence. While the internet exploded with theories about what happened under that bridge, silence. Then she posted, "I would never do anything to harm him." But here's what makes this case so haunting. It's not just about what she's saying now. It's about what she didn't say when it mattered most. December 27th, 2024. Tyrone Davis Jr. leaves a Papa John's, perfectly fine, caught on camera. Less than 10 minutes later, he's found under a bridge on Archer Road with trauma so severe, pieces of his skull shifted from the back of his head to the front. The woman he was with? She made it to the hospital. But when they checked him in, she never told them his name. For 24 hours, the man who decorated an entire cabin with "I love you" sticky notes lay there as John Doe. No phone call to his mother. No ID to the hospital. Staff. Just silence. Now she's speaking. She says they were inseparable, that they had their whole life planned, that she's lost a major part of herself. His family? They're asking one question. If you loved him so much, why did it take the hospital to call his mother? This is the case of Tyrone Davis Jr., a man who loved loud, a woman who stayed quiet, and a Christmas trip where only one person came home. Before we dive into what happened, you need to know who we're talking about, because this isn't some random person. This is somebody thousands of people loved. Tyrone Davis Jr. went by several names: T2, Stepdaddy Drew, Young Drew. During the day, he drove trucks, made good money doing it too. On the side, he worked as a realtor, and in his spare time, he was a social media influencer with a growing following. This wasn't some dude out here doing shady stuff. He worked hard, multiple jobs, multiple income streams, getting it the right way. He had 2 children, a son named Eli and a daughter named Chloe. If you ever scrolled through his social media, you'd see them all the time. He didn't just take care of his kids. He showed up for them, publicly, proudly. But what really set Tyrone apart was his heart. He wasn't just about making money or looking good online. He genuinely cared about people. He'd post motivational videos talking directly to his followers, encouraging them, pushing them to be better. One video that really captures who he was, he's talking about checking on your friends. He says when people start acting distant, don't assume they're being stuck up or brand new. Pick up the phone. Actually call them. Make sure they're okay mentally before you take things personally. He talked about how people go through struggles alone because nobody's checking on them. And then when something bad happens, everybody's like, oh, they could have talked to me. But when they were quiet, you weren't calling either. That was Tyrone. Always thinking about community, always trying to lift people up. His family described him as having Leo energy, natural leader, go-getter, the type of person who lights up a room just by walking in. And here's what's important. He treated everybody the same. Didn't matter if you were rich, poor, street, corporate, whatever. He gave everybody the same respect. His family called him a superstar. And when you see how many people showed up for him after his death, you understand it wasn't just family pride. People genuinely love this man. So when something like this happens to somebody like that, it hits different. This is where the story gets complex. Tyrone met a woman named Kiara. She went by Lulu on social media. And from what the world could see, these two looked perfect together. Like relationship goals type of perfect. Tyrone went all out for this woman. Surprise trips, elaborate birthday celebrations, Valentine's Day setups that would make anybody jealous. He bought her gifts constantly, posted her all over his page, praised her to anybody who would listen. They got matching tattoos together, matching pajamas. He'd make her lunch before work and put little love notes in the bag. When she broke her ankle and had to wear a boot, he'd carry her so she wouldn't have to walk on it. He called her his queen, told his followers he'd be lost without her. The internet ate it up. Comments flooded in calling him boyfriend of the year. People bookmarked his videos as examples of what they wanted in a relationship. But here's where it gets interesting. Some people, especially people close to Tyrone, notice something. When you go back and watch those videos now, there's an imbalance. His energy is maxed out. He's smiling, laughing, talking to the camera, just radiating happiness. But her? She's just there. She'll smile. She'll laugh. But it doesn't quite reach her eyes. You know what I mean? Like she's going through the motions but not fully present. His friends picked up on it. They told him to slow down, pump the brakes, take some time to really see if this is what he thinks it is. But Tyrone? He was all in. No hesitation, no second guessing. He loved this woman unconditionally. But what happens next is so painful. December 2024. Christmas season. Tyrone decides he wants to do something special. He books a cabin in Gainesville, Florida. Secluded location, away from the noise. Just the two of them. And he doesn't just book it. He goes completely overboard with the setup. Decorations everywhere, presents, games, matching silk pajamas, a bottle of Hennessy, home-cooked meals planned out. But the thing that really shows his heart? Before Lulu even arrives, he covers the entire cabin in sticky notes. Every single one says, "I love you, Lou." He's so excited about this surprise that he's recording himself setting it up, talking to his phone about how he can't wait for her to see it. At one point, a woman driving by actually stops her car because she's curious what he's doing to this cabin. And Tyrone, grinning ear to ear, explains the whole romantic setup to her. That's how happy this man was. Happy enough to tell random people about it. When Lulu arrives, they start posting content together, cooking videos, playing games, opening presents, just enjoying each other. To anyone watching from the outside, this looked like exactly what the holidays should be. Two people in love, making memories. But according to what came out later, things shifted at some point during that trip. The person who owned the cabin got a call from neighbors. They'd heard a loud argument coming from the property, and according to what they told him, it sounded like the woman was the one being aggressive. By the time anybody went to check on the situation, things had quieted down. But here's what's strange. Nobody saw Tyrone. Just Lulu, by herself, dragging luggage to the car despite having a broken ankle. The afternoon after they check out of the cabin, then they get a hotel room nearby. Surveillance cameras catch them going into a Papa John's pizza shop to pick up food. And this is important. Tyrone looks completely normal, walking fine, talking, moving around like nothing's wrong. But between that pizza shop and a bridge on Archer Road, a distance that takes less than 10 minutes to drive, something happened. Something that meant Tyrone Davis Jr. would never make it back home. December 27th, around 5 in the evening. This is when everything falls apart. Here's Lulu's version of events. She says they got into an argument while driving. Tyrone told her he wanted to get out of the car, so she pulled over to the side of the road and let him out. Then she drove away. Now let me stop here because this is where things start getting questionable. According to her, she drove about 5 minutes away to a gas station. Her reasoning was that maybe Tyrone needed space to cool off. Maybe he'd walk to where she was waiting once he calmed down. While she's at this gas station, she sees ambulances racing past, police cars, more emergency vehicles, and she gets a bad feeling. So she drives back to where she'd left him. But here's what actually happened, according to witnesses. A couple is driving down Archer Road when they spot someone lying in the middle of the street under a bridge. The wife happens to be a nurse. Her husband immediately pulls their car over and positions it to block traffic so nobody accidentally hits this person. The wife jumps out and starts performing CPR. They call 911. The 911 dispatch log is very specific. It says, pedestrian versus sedan. Caller passing by advising male patient injured after being hit by a sedan. Read that again. hit by a sedan. Not fell down, not jumped out of a moving car. The witness reported seeing someone get hit by a vehicle. Now here's another detail that matters. Lulu was driving an Infiniti SUV that day, and according to multiple family members, Lulu didn't normally drive at all. She had a broken ankle. Tyrone drove her everywhere. So the fact that she was behind the wheel that particular day is already unusual. Emergency services arrive and rush Tyrone to HCA Hospital, located right off Archer Road near Interstate 75. But when they bring him in, he doesn't have any identification. No wallet. No phone. Nothing. So the hospital does what they have to do. They check him in as John Doe. Think about this for a second. Tyrone Davis Jr., father to 2 children, son to a mother who'd already lost 2 other sons, nephew to aunts and uncles who loved him, is lying in a hospital bed fighting for his life. And the hospital has no idea who he is. They can't call his family. They can't notify anyone. They're treating a critically injured man who, as far as they know, has no identity. Now here's the question. Where's Lulu during all this? She's at the hospital. She made it there. But she's not saying anything. She doesn't tell the medical staff his name. She doesn't provide his mother's phone number. She doesn't call any family members herself. She sits there for 24 hours. Let me make sure that's clear. For a full day, this woman sits in a hospital while doctors and nurses are trying to figure out who this John Doe patient is, and she never speaks up. The woman who just spent Christmas in a cabin covered in "I love you" notes written by this man. The woman who was supposedly inseparable from him. She watches him get treated as a nameless person and says nothing. Eventually, a full day later, the hospital manages to contact Tyrone's mother, Renee. Sunday morning, she gets the call. Now Renee had already buried 2 sons. Tyrone was her last living child. And now she's being told he's in a Gainesville hospital with severe head trauma, and the prognosis isn't good. She doesn't immediately call the extended family. She wants to get up there first and see what's happening with her own eyes. When she arrives and sees how serious the injuries are, she finally calls Ma Charlotte, Tyrone's aunt on his father's side of the family. Ma Charlotte makes calls to the rest of the Davis family, and they mobilize. 6 cars full of family members, aunts, uncles, cousins, siblings, his father, Tyrone Sr. They all pack up and make the drive to Gainesville that same day. When they get to the hospital, doctors give them the details. Tyrone suffered blunt force trauma to the back of his skull. But the damage was so severe that fragments of bone broke off and traveled to the front of his head. Both sides of his brain were affected. His entire skull, front and back, was fractured. The family is trying to process this information, trying to understand how something like this could happen. And Lulu? She's there, but she's not offering explanations. At some point, she tells them she needs to leave, says she has to go back to the cabin to get their belongings. But the family wasn't just going to sit around waiting for answers. Where are you watching from? Drop your city in the comments. And if you're still here, still locked in, still trying to understand what happened to Tyrone, type "still watching." Because the fact that you're still here, that matters. That's how cases get solved. People who don't look away. Natasha, one of Tyrone's aunts, has a sister who decides to call the cabin owner directly, and what he tells them is revealing. He confirms that neighbors had already contacted him about an argument at the property. According to what they heard, the woman sounded like the aggressor in the situation. When neighbors walked over to check if everything was okay, the argument had stopped. But they never saw Tyrone. Just Lulu, alone, dragging bags from the cabin to the car despite her ankle injury. Here's where Lulu's story about going back for belongings falls apart. The cabin owner tells them Lulu never returned. Why? Because they'd already fully checked out. Another guest had already checked into that cabin by the time Lulu claimed she needed to go back for their stuff. So if she wasn't going back to the cabin, where did she actually go when she left the hospital? The family starts comparing notes. They're talking to each other about what Lulu told different people. and they realize something. The story keeps changing. This is where things get really problematic. First, Lulu tells Tyrone's mother, Renee, that he fell at a gas station and bumped his head. Okay, so he fell at a gas station. But wait, didn't she say she let him out on the side of the road? How does a gas station factor into this? Then she tells the Davis family that they were arguing in the car. Tyrone asked to get out. She stopped the vehicle completely. He got out, and then she drove to a gas station to wait for him. So now the gas station is where she went after dropping him off, not where he fell. The story evolves. Now she's saying the car might have been moving at about 25 miles per hour when Tyrone got out. 25 miles per hour. That's faster than you're allowed to drive in a school zone. But she let a grown man exit a moving vehicle at that speed? Now she claims Tyrone jumped out of the car while it was in motion. So now he wasn't asking to be let out. He jumped? She then says that he stumbled and tripped over his own feet as he was getting out of the vehicle. So which is it? Did he ask to exit and she stopped? Did he jump? Did he trip? Was the car stopped or moving? Was he at a gas station or on the side of the road? You can't have 5 different versions of the same event and expect people to not ask questions. Here's another detail that doesn't make sense. When first responders found Tyrone on the side of the road, he was holding pizza and chicken wings, the food they'd just picked up from Papa John's. But here's what he didn't have. No wallet, no cell phones, and Tyrone carried at least 2, sometimes 3 phones because of his trucking, business and real estate work. No gun, and this is Florida, where Tyrone stayed armed for protection. No ID, nothing. Lulu had driven away with all of it. So let's walk through this. You're in a city you're not familiar with. You and your girlfriend get into an argument. She lets you out of the car, and somehow you end up on the side of the road with fast food in your hands. But none of your personal items? No way to call anyone. No way to identify yourself if something happens. No protection. Tyrone's Aunt Natasha said something that stuck with a lot of people. She said no man on this planet is going to voluntarily leave a vehicle without his wallet, his phone, and his gun. That just doesn't happen. But there's more. The day after Tyrone was pronounced dead at the hospital, someone accessed the bank account he shared with his sister. All the money got transferred out. The account went to zero. The transfer went into Tyrone's personal account, one that only he was supposed to have access to. But Tyrone was dead. So who made that transfer? Lulu had access to his phone. She had access to his banking information. Now, the family has made it clear they're not focused on money. Natasha specifically said they're not concerned about material possessions. What they want is justice. But that financial transaction? It told them something about the situation. The family also tracked down witnesses in Gainesville. There was a homeless man living under the same bridge where Tyrone was found. He told the family what he saw that day. He said the pizza box flew open and hit the ground. The chicken wings scattered everywhere, and then he looked over and saw a man stagger before collapsing. Stagger, then collapse. This matches what the 911 dispatch recorded. A witness seeing someone get hit by a vehicle. Not someone who fell. Not someone who jumped out of a car. Someone who got hit. And remember, there's less than 10 minutes of drive time between Papa John's and that bridge. The hotel surveillance shows Tyrone walking in, no issues. The Papa John's footage shows him going in to get food, everything normal. All his limbs working, no injuries. So whatever happened, it happened in that short window after they got the food. The family believes the argument that started at the cabin reignited once they were back in the car with that food. And whatever Lulu did, or whatever happened, it happened in those 10 minutes. Let's go back to that hospital room one more time. Doctors are doing everything medically possible. Tyrone's grandmother, his uncles, his aunts, they're all surrounding his bed, begging him to show some sign of life. Any sign. One of the doctors tells them, "If you can get him to give us any kind of response, we'll stop the tests immediately. We'll take him straight into surgery." They're crying, praying, calling out to him. But there's nothing. No response. Tyrone is pronounced dead while his entire family stands there watching. His father, Tyrone Sr., said something that just breaks your heart. He said, Right now, I'm not even Tyrone Sr. anymore. That's just my physical body. My spirit is what's keeping me going because everything inside me is destroyed. This man had recently buried his own father. Now he's burying his son, his last remaining son. And the woman who his son loved, the woman he took care of and showed off to the world, she's the reason the hospital had to list him as John Doe. There's no way around that fact. A few days after Tyrone's death, his aunt Natasha decides to go live on Facebook. And she doesn't hold back. The entire family gathers. Tyrone Sr., cousins, aunts, uncles. People are inside the house, outside in the yard. She estimates about 500 people showed up. After that, they address everything. Natasha lays out the timeline, the inconsistencies, the unanswered questions. She talks about finding Tyrone under a bridge. She questions how Lulu could leave him there and claim not to know what happened. She points out that if something looks like a duck and sounds like a duck, it's probably a duck, meaning the evidence is pointing in a clear direction. She addresses the injuries directly. His skull fractured from back to front, the kind of trauma that doesn't come from tripping or stumbling. She calls out the changing stories. First he stumbled, then he jumped. Then the car was going 25 miles per hour. Then he tripped. Her message is clear. Accidents happen. But if it was an accident, tell a consistent story. Tell the truth. Other family members take turns speaking. One points out the math doesn't work. If the car was completely stopped, how did he end up with those injuries? If it was going 25 miles per hour, why would you let someone out at that speed? Another talks about responsibility. Even if Lulu didn't directly cause harm, she was the only other person there. She had a responsibility to stay with him, to make sure he got help, to identify him at the hospital. But she wasn't there when the couple stopped to help. She wasn't there when the paramedics arrived. She wasn't there when he needed someone to vouch for who he was. Someone else addresses the hospital situation directly. They say, "It doesn't matter if you did it on purpose, by accident, or if you had nothing to do with it. You should have been there. You should have been able to give an accurate account." But she couldn't, or wouldn't. The family makes it clear. If the roles were reversed, if something happened to Lulu and Tyrone was the one who survived, he would have been arrested immediately. No questions asked. But Tyrone wasn't that kind of person. He wouldn't have left her. His heart was too good. If this story is making you think differently, if you're seeing patterns you ignored before, if you're recognizing behavior in your own relationships or in people you love, then this video is doing exactly what it needs to do. Hit that like button. Subscribe to stay updated. But most importantly, share this with your people, your kids, your siblings, your friends who are in relationships. Because Tyrone's father just gave you the advice that could prevent this from happening to your family. Then Tyrone's father gets on camera. And if you want to understand the weight of this situation, listen to what he says. He thanks everyone who's been sharing the story and showing support, but he makes it clear. He doesn't care about material things. He doesn't care about possessions or bank accounts. All he wants is what belongs to him. And what belongs to him is the truth about what happened to his son. He talks about walking around like a shell of himself. Says he's not even really Tyrone Sr. anymore. Just a spirit in a body. The only thing keeping him going is that spirit, because emotionally, he's destroyed. He mentions waking up at his father's grave, crying, asking for answers, and then he gives advice to every parent watching. He says, teach your children not to trust anybody, not out of hate or bitterness, but because you never really know people. They welcomed Lulu into their family, embraced her, never saw this coming. He points to the crowd of people who showed up, 500 plus, and says all he's asking for is help sharing the story. Help pushing for answers. Because at the end of the day, even when the investigation concludes, even when they get whatever closure is possible, it's not going to heal the wound. His son is gone, but he deserves to know why. The family makes their position clear. They're not randomly accusing anyone. They weren't there. They don't know exactly what happened. But they know this. Tyrone left their city with Lulu. He was found alone under a bridge with no identification. And if you knew Tyrone, you know he didn't go anywhere without multiple phones and protection. But all he had was pizza and wings. They keep emphasizing, if you know something, say something. Contact the police. Contact the family. Help them get answers. And they make one more thing very clear. Lulu shouldn't even think about showing up to the funeral. One family member says she better get a rain check because that's not going to be a safe situation for her. Another says she can sit between them if she wants to try. They're not playing. They're serious. But they're also trying to let the legal system handle this first. After all of this, after the family went public, after the funeral, after the story spread across social media, Lulu finally posts a statement. Here's what she wrote. She says this has been the most heartbreaking experience of her life. Extremely difficult, overwhelming, confusing, and emotional. She's trying to grieve while processing that Tyrone isn't here anymore, even though they were inseparable. She states clearly, she would never do anything to harm him or want him to lose his life. She's lost a major part of herself. She explains that social media was never her thing. It was Tyrone's. Her first instinct wasn't to address things online. She didn't know what to say because she's lost, and the people who really know them know them. They weren't perfect, but they were made for each other. They had their whole lives planned. Then she addresses the family situation. She says she's provided her account of everything to both sides of Tyrone's family, the Davis side, his father's family, and the Jennings side, his mother's family. And here's where it gets pointed. She says, notice that only one side is spreading hateful, negative things that Tyrone wouldn't allow or respect. She's essentially saying his mother's side believes her, but his father's side is the one going public with accusations. She continues, as much as she wants to explain her innocence out of love for Tyrone, who she still can't believe is gone, there's an active investigation happening. Out of respect for the legal process, she won't make any more public statements until it's complete. She thanks everyone who's witnessed their love and chosen to stand with her. She asks people to let detectives do their job and stop with the accusations. She ends by saying the truth will come out in due time. Okay, so that's what Lulu said. Now let's talk about what's in that statement. And what's not. What she's claiming. She's devastated. She loved Tyrone. They were inseparable. She would never harm him. Social media wasn't her platform, which is true if you look at their pages. He posted constantly. She barely posted at all. She gave her story to both sides of the family. The Davis family is being publicly hostile, while the Jennings family isn't. She legally can't speak right now because of the investigation. All of that makes sense on the surface. But here's what she doesn't address. She doesn't explain the 24 hours of silence at the hospital. Why she never identified him. Why the hospital had to call his mother instead of her calling them. She doesn't address the 5 different versions of events. Why the story changed from a gas station fall to a stopped car to a moving car to jumping to tripping. She doesn't mention why Tyrone ended up with food in his hands but none of his personal belongings. No phone, no wallet, no weapon. She doesn't bring up the money transfer that happened the day after his death. She doesn't acknowledge the cabin argument that neighbors witnessed. She doesn't address the 911 call that specifically said a witness saw a pedestrian get hit by a sedan. Now legally, her lawyer probably told her not to address any of that. Anything you say publicly can be used in an investigation. Silence is the safest legal strategy. But emotionally, to a grieving family, silence looks like guilt. The family split she mentions is interesting. She's pointing out that both sides of Tyrone's family got her story, but only his father's side is publicly questioning it. Does that mean his mother's family believes her? Or are they just grieving differently and not engaging publicly? We don't know. But when half of a family is demanding answers and the other half is quiet, that tells you this situation is complicated. And we still come back to the same central question. If you were inseparable from this man, if you loved him the way you're claiming, why did he die alone with no name? Why did he spend his last moments as John Doe while you sat in the same building? Let me be fair and lay out both possibilities, because we have to consider both sides. First possibility. This was a horrible, tragic accident. Tyrone and Lulu argued in the car. Things got heated. He asked to get out, maybe to walk it off, maybe to create some space. Something went wrong when he exited the vehicle. Maybe he lost his balance. Maybe another car was involved that we don't know about yet. Maybe it was a freak accident. Lulu panicked. She's young. She's in a city she doesn't know. She's got a broken ankle. She doesn't know what to do. She gets to the hospital and goes into complete shock. Trauma does strange things to people's minds. Some people freeze completely. They can't speak, can't think clearly, can't process what's happening. By the time her brain starts functioning again, the hospital has already reached his mother. In this version, Lulu is a victim too. She lost the person she loved in the worst possible way, and now the internet has convicted her of murder before any investigation is complete. The changing stories aren't lies. They're a traumatized person trying to piece together memories while in shock. The silence wasn't calculated. It was a psychological response to overwhelming trauma. That's possible. Trauma does create those responses in people. Another possibility. Something much darker happened. The argument at the cabin was more serious than anyone realized. Whatever conflict started there never really ended. It just went quiet for a while. Once they got in the car after picking up food, it erupted again. Something happened in those 10 minutes between Papa John's and that bridge. Something violent enough to cause catastrophic head trauma. Lulu knows exactly what happened, but she can't say it because it would incriminate her. The 24 hours of silence wasn't shock. It was strategy. Time to think. Time to figure out what to say. The changing stories weren't confusion. They were attempts to find a version that fit the evidence. The money transfer wasn't a mistake. It showed intent. In this version, Tyrone was killed, and the person responsible is the same person asking for patience while investigations continue. So, which one is true? I don't know. You don't know. Only Tyrone and Lulu. Two of them aren't talking. But here's why millions of people are following this case. It's not just about one couple in Florida. It's about something that terrifies people. The idea that you can give someone everything, your complete trust, your whole heart, your entire life, and still not really know them. We all watched those videos. We saw Tyrone smiling, showering this woman with love, doing everything right. We saw what looked like a genuine, beautiful relationship, and now he's dead. And the person who was with him can't or won't give a clear explanation. That's terrifying, because if it happened to him, someone who seemed happy and in love, it could happen to anyone. Here's what makes it worse. His friends noticed something was off. They told him to slow down. They saw the imbalance in the relationship. But Tyrone loved her anyway. How many people watching this are in similar situations right now? How many people have friends warning them about someone, but they ignore it because they're in love? That's the real lesson here. Pay attention to the people who love you. If your friends who have nothing to gain from your breakup are telling you something's wrong, listen. If you're giving everything and getting back very little, pay attention. If your gut is telling you something's off, trust it. Because love shouldn't cost you your life. Currently, the Gainesville Police Department is investigating. No arrests have been made. No charges have been filed. No official statement about their findings. Lulu has broken her silence with that Instagram post. She maintains her innocence. She's asking people to let the investigation run its course. The Davis family is not backing down. They want answers, not social media statements. They want justice. The Jennings family remains publicly quiet. We don't know their position. But while we wait for the investigation to conclude, certain facts remain unchanged. Tyrone Davis Jr. walked into a Papa John's on December 27, 2024, at around 5 p.m. Security footage confirms he was healthy and normal. Less than 10 minutes later, he was found under a bridge with skull fractures so severe that bone fragments traveled from the back of his head to the front. He was admitted to a hospital as John Doe. For 24 hours, he had no identity. The woman he was with didn't call his family. Someone transferred money from his account after his death. 2 children no longer have their father. A mother buried her last surviving son. A father says his soul is destroyed. And somewhere in those 10 minutes, Something happened that ended a life. Maybe the investigation will clear everything up. Maybe we'll understand why the story's hanged. Why he had food, but no personal items. Why she couldn't speak for a full day. Maybe. But right now, we wait. On January 10th, hundreds of people showed up to a candlelight vigil for Tyrone. They didn't just come to mourn. They came because his story represents something deeper. The fear that the person you trust most could be the reason you don't come home. His family said it best. Don't trust anyone blindly. Not because people are inherently evil, but because sometimes you don't see who someone really is until it's too late. If you're in a relationship where things feel off, where you're doing all the work, where people who love you are expressing concern, pay attention. Tyrone's friends tried to warn him. He loved her anyway, and now he's gone. Love should never cost you your life. Rest in peace, Tyrone Davis Jr. Your children will know who their father was. Your family will keep fighting for truth. And your story will remind people that love is precious, and so is the life you're living. Justice for T2. If you're loving this content and want to support what we do, join the membership. You'll get exclusive perks, early access, behind-the-scenes content, and you'll help us keep covering cases that need attention.